Orks are a warlike, crude, and highly aggressive, green-skinned Xenos race. Orks are the dominant subspecies of the Orkoids, which includes the smaller Gretchin and Snotlings. Although their society is entirely primitive and brutal, the Orkoid race is also the most successful species in the whole galaxy, outnumbering possibly every other race. However, due to their aggressive and warlike nature, this massive race is split into hundreds of tiny empires, warring as much between themselves as against other races. In the purely theoretical event all the Orks were to unite, they would undoubtedly crush all opposition. The Orkoid races are believed to have been genetically engineered millennia ago. Ork legend attributes their creation to the Brain Boys, a diminutive but extremely intelligent subspecies of Orkoid, who bred the Gretchin to be servants and the Orks to be warriors. Later evidence establishes that the Ork races may have in fact been created by the Old Ones, who are described as creating the Krork as part of a last-ditch attempt to fight off their enemies, such as the Necrons and Enslavers. Krorks were hulking brutes reaching nearly 12 meters tall that wore sophisticated armor, great even by the standards of the Imperium during the Horus Heresy. The Orks have had a presence in the galaxy since the War in Heaven and are known to have first battled mankind long before the foundation of the Imperium, tens of thousands of years ago during the Dark Age of technology. Humanity and the Orks have fought innumerable conflicts over this time and are unlikely to ever stop. During the Age of Strife, the power of the Ork race seemingly expanded to great lengths. During the Great Crusade, the Emperor led 2 major campaigns to smash a major Ork empire. After defeating the empire of Urlak-Urg at Ulanor, the Ork race was thought to have been relegated to a minor threat by the Imperium. However, Imperial hopes were soon shattered. In 544 of the 32nd millennium, an Ork warlord known simply as the Beast succeeded in uniting much of the Ork race and nearly conquered the entire galaxy. Leading the largest war ever seen, in the end, he was stopped in an apocalyptic struggle with the Imperium. In the 41st millennium, another extremely powerful Ork warboss, Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka, began wreaking havoc across the galaxy by invading Armageddon twice. He leads the Great War and has been spotted in several war zones across the galaxy. The Ork race hails Gazkul as the prophet of the Ork gods, Gork and Mork. Orks were genetically engineered to be tough, muscular, aggressive, and primitive-minded. In addition to their warriors, by far the most populous group, gatherings of Orks are naturally divided into a caste of odd boys who are genetically predisposed to perform specific tasks exceedingly well. Indeed, the Orks creators were apparently able to encode information on how to build and maintain technology in their genetic templates. Mech boys, for example, require very little training in their function since they understand mechanical principles at an instinctive level. The largest common Ork social unit is the tribe, a horde usually comprised of numerous warbands, all under the command of a warlord or warboss. Even these groups cannot truly be classed as stable, as Ork tribes are constantly growing, conquering other tribes, or being conquered themselves. A warband is a smaller social group, usually led by a warboss. Generally, several such warbands together form a tribe under the leadership of the strongest warboss. Warbands in turn are comprised of various mobs, groups of Orks bound together as social and fighting units, often grouped together by their preferred style of combat. At the lowest level of Ork society are the Gretchins, who perform menial and tasks and act as slaves, though in truth, most feel comfortable in this role despite simultaneously despising their masters. Only the infantile Snotlings are below Gretchins on the social ladder. The Orkoid ecosystem includes several species: Gretchin, Snotlings, Squigs, and Orkoid fungus, as well as the Orks themselves. The Ork ecosystem, born from fungal spores, travels with the race itself, allowing the orcs to rapidly colonize and reproduce on worlds across the galaxy. Orcs are unusual in that they can continue to grow throughout their lives, and that this growth is directly tied to their social standing, the largest orcs always being the most dominant. Orkoid physiology is a symbiotic combination of animal and fungus, integrated such that each augments the operation of the other and both work in perfect harmony. This fungus makes individual orcs incredibly resilient, replacing several vital organs as well as adding padding around those which remain. The fungus also fulfills the orc species' reproductive function and makes them one of the most proliferative species in the galaxy. Adult orcs are constantly releasing spores which lie in the ground, often for years, waiting to develop into orcs or Gretchin. Thus, a world invaded by orcs will be troubled by them for hundreds of years to come, and even if their initial attack is defeated, it is all but impossible to eradicate them completely. Orc technology appears ramshackle and slapped together, but is as potent as any weaponry used by the Imperium. Orc technology is characterized by a constant stream of poorly thought-out experimentation and constantly trying to outdo the competition to build the biggest gun, the largest gargant, or the fastest war buggy. Therefore, Orc technology is not uniform, lending Orc warbands a cobbled-together and random appearance. Orc mech boys are specialists in the field of producing powerful force fields that can protect against damage and at battlefield improvisation of repairs. They can salvage almost any burnt-out wreck, and many Orc vehicles have been reported destroyed dozens of times, only to be cobbled back together, given a fresh lick of paint, if even that, and sent back into the fray. The tough, resilient nature of Orcs means they accept crude bionic enhancements, transplants, and other medical shenanigans being performed on them with ease. Much of Orc technology is unreliable and sometimes seemingly inoperable to other races, in some cases only working properly in the hands of an Orc. This has led some members of the Adeptus Mechanicus to theorize that the psychic nature of the Orcs has an impact on their technology, assisting in making it function as it should. However, whether this is actually the case or not is inconclusive. Orcs are capable of faster-than-light travel, using warp engines similar to that of an Imperial warp drive. Some are rebuilt from the ruins of salvaged Imperial warp drives, while others may be bizarre contraptions built around the disembodied brains of the Orc weirdboys. Orcs seem to not care that this technology is crude, dangerous, and prone to catastrophic failures. Orcs control a significant part of known space, but these territories are not a united or cohesive organization. Rather, they are a collection of thousands of individual territories and empires. These independent factions are as likely to fight with each other as they are with any other species, although on occasion, a particularly powerful warlord will initiate a phenomenon known as a war, a mass unification of various tribes and warbands. Fortunately, these wars are not permanent alliances and will eventually disband either when they are defeated or when they run out of enemies to fight. Orcs speak their own language. It is very crude and has many dialects varying across the galaxy. Often, it incorporates loanwords from other languages, including Imperial Gothic. Writing is beyond the abilities of most Greenskins, but they do use a limited range of pictograms and glyphs for, among other things, drawing crude maps. Orcs use their teeth as currency. This is quite a natural solution to inflation and income support, as Orcs regrow their teeth in a similar manner to Terran sharks, replacing them quite frequently. They degrade over time, so it is impossible to hoard them. This keeps prices constant, ensures all Orcs have access to money, and allows constant values to be placed on commodities. A tooth will buy a good squig pie and a tankard of fungus beer, while a bag of teeth will buy a cheap war buggy. A big flash battle wagon could cost a war boss hundreds of teeth. Whilst an orc will belong to a tribe, they also belong to a clan. Whilst tribes are constantly changing, breaking apart and reforming, clan ties are stable and enduring. Orc clans are not communities, but rather philosophical delineations representing the various aspects of the orcish character. Each clan has its own colors, markings, characteristics, and ways of waging war. It is possible that clan affiliation may, in part, be a genetic phenomenon, as members of the same clan may have physical characteristics in common that distinguish them from members of other clans. For instance, bad moons are identifiable by the faster growth rate of their teeth. An orc tribe usually contains orcs from many different clans, so when tribes fight each other, orcs will often find themselves in combat with foes from the same clan. This is considered normal, as an individual orc's allegiance is to his war boss rather than his clan. Despite this, inter-clan rivalry is intense. Orc culture, above all else, is based entirely around fighting and seeking ever stronger or more entertaining foes. Orcs always are looking for a fight, and while they prefer to fight non-orky foes, they will not shy away from fighting each other should no other enemy present itself. However, orcs do dislike fighting machines due to the lack of satisfying feeling or visceralness to it. The more the orc fights, the bigger he becomes, and the more respect and authority he receives from orcs around him. Given enough enemies to fight and enough victories under his belt, an orc can become truly gigantic, with the beast reaching close to the size of an imperial knight. In place of fighting, orcs will sometimes test their mettle in various other ways, including arm wrestling, squig-eating contests, and ramshackle vehicle races. Orcs have a short attention span and virtually no patience. While they do not require sleep, will do it if there's nothing else better to do. Should even this get too dull and no bigger orc bosses around to stop them, orc society will fall apart and they will resort to self-destructive violence. Orcs have no concept of love and find the concept of human affections strange. However, they do have a kind of battle bliss and will often associate this with both love and hate. Orkoid psychology is utterly different from that of humans, to the point where they can simultaneously believe two contradictory facts. Orcs believe in two gods: Gork, the god of cunning brutality, and Mork, the god of brutal cunning. The subtle difference being that Mork hits you when you aren't looking, Gork hits you hard when you are. As such, sometimes orcs can't remember which is which and fight over it. They have no real priesthood, although the infamous mighty Goth warlord Gazkul Mag Uruk Thraka claims to be receiving visions from them. The orc believe in a concept of an afterlife called the Great Green, where all orc souls go to one day be reincarnated, should they please the gods enough. At least one individual, the Grot Makari, has been reborn numerous times. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.